Hello everyone, so we are back with Roots Approach part 2, continuing it further. So we are in the second part of the principles of treatment. The second principle is stimulation of specific receptors can produce three major responses. Now first of all, how these specific receptors will be stimulated. So they will be stimulated by three reactions. The first is by autonomic nervous system. So the autonomic nervous system usually controls the involuntary part, but sometimes it can stimulate the sympathetic response. The second is by reflex protective responses, that is by the reflex arc. For example, if any pinprick sensation is there in the fingertips, the through the sensory efferent, the stimuli will be traveling to the spinal cord, and the efferent will be sending back and motor output, which will produce a response to withdraw the finger. So that is via reflex protective response. And the third is by adaptive responses. Now adaptive response means to learn and a particular response. For example, if someone is trying to balance on a very uneven surface, so many of the systems will be required in order to maintain the balance. That is, adaptive response require greater integration of all regions. Integration is the processing of all the regions and the different parts of the nervous system. So via these three reactions, mainly the specific receptors will be stimulated, and these specific receptors will now give an response. So there are 4 rules for sensory input. The first rule is fast brief stimulus. For example, any fast brief stimulus is given, it will be producing a large motor output, and this stimulate will indicate that the reflex arc is intact. So the example is tapping. For example, if anyone is doing patellar tapping, so the efferent sensory fibers will be traveling to the spinal cord, and the efferent response will be sended in form of knee jerk, that is and motor output. The second is by fast repetitive sensory input, that is fast and repetitive sensory input is there. So as the sensory input is repetitive, it will produce a maintained response, and this will be stimulate the C fibers and the gamma fibers. So this repetitive fast sensory input will be stimulating the C fibers and the gamma fibers. For example, if fast brushing is given on a skin, then it will be producing it will be activating the non-specific receptors, and the impulses will be traveling via C fibers and gamma fibers to produce the response. The third is maintained sensory input. Maintain is maintained for a long time, and sensory input is maintained. So in response to that, the receptors will be stimulated. So here, for example, if a person is in a standing position, then there will be the activation of the proprioceptors of the joints, and which will give an motor output for the extensor muscles to stand erect. The fourth and the last one is slow, rhythmic and repetitive sensory input. So it is slow, rhythmic and repetitive. Mostly it will be producing a calming movement which will deactivate the body and mind, and it will be activating the parasympathetic system. For example, if a person is sitting on a slow rocking chair listening to a music, or if there is a firm pressure given on the sole or any other part of the body, it will be producing a calming effect. The body will be relaxing. So these are the 4 rules of sensory input, and based on this input, desired motor response will be produced. So by this mechanism, the sensory input will be received, processed, and the motor output will be produced. And there are different types of technique based on this: cutaneous facilitation, light moving touch, fast brushing. We will learn about this in further videos. Thank you.